You are now listening to the I Think I Love My Wife podcast. And this is your best friend's best friend, Chidozie Okafor, ready to take you on another journey. Are you with me? Because I'm ready. Let's get it. In this episode, we'll discuss the different factors for evaluating someone as a girlfriend versus a wife. We'll talk about navigating a long-distance relationship, the benefits and the concerns that come with it. We'll discuss premarital counseling and getting past the first-year challenges of marriage and uncover the differences between compatibility and being able to make things work. All right, so we spent a lot of time talking about kind of what's going on in the world and a little bit of the story leading up to the marriage. I want to take a moment to, I guess, understand, what were you looking for when you got into the relationship? You talked about a bit. I was just thinking about boyfriend and girlfriend. Yeah. And then on the second part of your relationship, you were more thinking about things from more of a wife future standpoint. Yeah. How would you say those things are different in terms of how you're evaluating someone as like a girlfriend and how you're evaluating someone as like a wife or potential wife?
Yeah, I mean, I think I matured over the process too, right? Like initially, it was like, oh, this girl is really cute. We seem to get along. We have great conversations. We laugh. We enjoy spending time with each other. This could be my girlfriend, right? That was kind of just basic, from high school up to that point was kind of my criteria or whatever it was for a girlfriend. But then as I started to think more long term, it became a lot deeper in what I was looking for. And so some of the things we already talked about before, just someone who I had that same intellectual curiosity with, someone that we had a good time, but I think it's when you kind of double click on that, it's more about like the types of things we're into align really well. We have that kind of intimacy with like our little inside jokes and being able to share some of those little funny moments with each other where kind of no one else in the room knows what we're laughing at. So some of those things like that and even being able to be my full self and kind of have that range of emotion with someone I thought was important as well. So those were some of the things I was looking for a life partner. And as when we got back together the second time, it was very much a courtship. It was me knowing in my mind, like I'm going at this from a intentionality of marriage being the end goal.
I wasn't planning to go there, but since you're there, let's stay there. Okay. So how do you look at dating and courting differently? Or are they the same thing to you?
I think they're different. I think that, again, it was his boyfriend, girlfriend. We're cool. The first time we're just dating. We're going to the movies. We're hanging out. That's fine. I think the second time around, it was me thinking about like my values and how they align with hers. Me like really kind of going deep in making a evaluation of a life partner. And going more into like her religious beliefs and how that would look like with a family and her thoughts on money, thinking about how she budgets and, where, what's her credit score, stuff like that. Yeah. Like, things
you didn't know that in the first part?
No, I wasn't worried about her credit score the first time. But I was really like thinking through that. And yeah, I mean,
would that what impacted your decision? If she had a terrible one?
If she had terrible credit?
Can you get to 350? I'm at 350. Sorry if yours is 350 right now.
No. I mean, I think, if you eventually want to buy a house with someone, so like that's going to affect like the interest rates that you guys have on your, well, yeah, you could do that, but I think that, just making purchases in the future, having good credit is important.
Would that have been a deal breaker for you?
Would have been a deal breaker? No. I mean, I have good credit. So, I mean, like you said, you can put stuff in your name, but like, I think that's it. It reflects how someone thinks about money to me in some ways. Yeah.
Or what they know at this point about it.
Yes, yeah. Exactly.
No, I get it. And so some of the things that you mentioned seems to me, we talked about it in the context of dating and courting, but the way you answered it seemed to be more of like how you have assessed the potential of the relationship or her as a partner. And I would say on the dating side, it's more superficial. Yeah. On the courting side, it's a little bit more depth into it. But I think when people think about it and talk about it, they're more thinking about it from like actions. Like, sure. How are your actions as it pertains to like the way you treat her absolutely. Differently? And so how were some of those actions?
I'll tell you this. So we got together in October of 2013, the second time around. January 2014, I was like, look, I want to surprise you when I propose to you. So why don't we just go ring shopping right now? So I know what you want. Cause I'm thinking like I'm going to be proposing to you at some point in the next, year. Yeah. And I ended up proposing in February of 2015. So it was like a year, like 13 months.
Yeah.
After that. Right. So I was like, this where my mind is.
So you asked her about that stuff, got the information. Y'all went ring shopping. So you got information.
Yeah.
But then it was 13 months after before you actually did it. Was there any, I would say, like,
why so long? Or are you saying?
I mean, why so long is I'd be curious to understand that. But where I was going to, but I want that answer to that.
Sure.
Was like, did you feel like she was like, yo, we got the answer. You got the answer you needed 6 months ago. What's taking you so long?
No. So I think for me, well, one, I always wanted this to be a surprise. I wanted to catch her completely off guard. So if you start asking questions,
I get it.
If you start asking questions about ring sizes and stuff, and I was up front, I was like,
13 months, you forget. You realize this might not happen. She's like, I don't know if it's happening.
Exactly.
He might have been lit again. And
I was intentional about how I was thinking through it. Right. I was like, okay, we've been back together for like 4 months. All right, I
know what I want.
I know what I want. Like, all right, let's plan this out. I knew I needed to be at my job a little bit longer before moving. One of us moved, but I was planning on probably having to move. And so I was like, okay, it'll probably be sometime next year. Like, and this was 2014. I was like, it's probably gonna be sometime 2015 when I propose. Let me go ahead and get this ring stuff sorted now, to where I'll be ready to go next year.
Got it. And so it seems like in terms of the courting piece, it was less. In this case, it was less about courting in the relationship, but like you were trying to marry the woman at that point in time.
Basically,
that's what you was trying to do.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm not playing no games.
Yeah.
We're about to get married.
Yeah. And
you just don't know when.
Yeah. All of our conversations were like directed. We were thinking about like what the timeline was going to look like. We were like,
and that's fair. Yeah. I think at that point in time, if you dated someone seriously and y'all get back together, you're not trying to figure each other out.
Yeah.
You're like, are we doing this or not?
Yeah.
Can we make it work?
Exactly.
And so something that you said highlights the fact that you guys were doing long distance for a bit, quite a while actually on both sides of it.
Yep.
What would you say in thinking about long distance? Because whether it's this COVID season or people are more open to like, you're at home anyway, you can't really go out, so we're meeting people virtually.
Yeah.
And so there's an opportunity, probably a great opportunity for you to potentially meet someone that doesn't live next to you.
Yeah.
What have you seen that doesn't work well?
Yeah.
As it pertains to dating long distance, and things that have really helped in terms of like sustaining that and making it work?
Yeah, so it's kind of a double-edged sword. So I think when we did get the opportunity to see each other, it was great, right? Like it was almost like a little mini vacation every time we got to see each other. But on the back end of that, it's not real life, right? Like when she's coming in to visit me, my laundry's already taken care of. My dishes are washed. Yeah, I'm not worried about the little things that need to get taken care of on a week to week. The dry cleaning's picked up, like all those
the
little
business part of a relationship.
Yeah, all that stuff's taken care of. It's now all we're focusing on is fun, right?
On y'all.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we're just having a good time. We're going out,
creating experiences. Yeah,
exactly. We're building memories, and it's great. And so honestly, that was one of my biggest worries, and it was kind of a leap of faith to say like, oh, we've only dated long distance this entire time. Both times around, it was all long distance. Can this really work once we are in the same city full time living together? Like we're going from only seeing each other every other weekend, or maybe once a month, or whatever it is, to all the time. So that was tough. But I think in terms of you asked what does and what doesn't work, I think just making time for each other is the biggest thing, whether that's like during the week, making sure you're on FaceTime or having calls and setting time aside. I don't know if there's anything I can point to that doesn't work. But I would just say just being intentional about ensuring that you're setting aside time for that person, even though you're not in the same city, is important.
Is there a special level of grace that has to occur when you're doing long distance relationship?
Yeah, I think so, actually. I think you have to be a little forgiving that, things may come up, and you may have missed that phone call, FaceTime date that you've been planning, and you may have been looking forward to it. And I guess that could be similar to an in-person situation, but I think there is a little bit more flexibility needed when you're dating long distance.
No, it makes sense to me, and I'm trying to be more and more open-minded about the long distance piece, because to the point that you made, you can like there's issues when you finally get to see each other. You don't want to make it about that.
Yeah,
everything is in a positive way just about y'all, but you're not seeing the business side and the day-to-day real side of it, because like, hey, I got 3 days, let's make it a great 3 days. And so some of the aspects you may not see, and so you say you took a leap of faith. How did you guys get to, or what were some of the considerations made when deciding who's moving where?
Well,
that's sometimes the toughest decisions, like,
for sure. Yeah, I mean, I think there's some real facts that kind of came out, right? Like, okay, lawyer, bar exam, states and things like that.
Limited on what the options are there.
And I think she was willing to take another bar exam to move up to Illinois, Chicago, or whatever. But it just didn't make sense. I'm from Texas. I was like, okay, look,
so that helped.
Yeah,
from where she was at, where she was currently located.
Exactly. So I'm from Texas. I'm from Houston, and so it was like, all right, I can get closer to my family by moving down. But I'll tell you what, I think a big piece of it, and what convinced me to make the move, was we were doing premarital counseling. And I was like, Pastor, like, I'm trying to figure this out.
Quick question before you go there. Were you guys engaged when you did it, or were you still dating?
We were engaged.
Okay.
So I'm like, Pastor, look, we are trying to figure this out. We haven't decided. Chicago, Dallas, like, what should we be doing?
So you made the leap before you even decided who was going to move.
Oh yeah.
You wasn't playing.
We had a 7-month engagement.
You weren't playing at all.
We got engaged February. We got married September. So it was like it was quick. It was quick. So maybe that year from the asking about the ring to the actual proposal was long, but the engagement was quick. And so I was like, yo, Pastor, like I need some help, some guidance. And he was like, you need to think about the decision, and wherever you feel peace is where you need to be. Yeah, what you need to decide. And so I just like was thinking about it, and Dallas just felt right. Felt like,
was she already in Dallas at the time?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so when you decided to make the move, did you guys decide to just live with each other, or do your separate places and then easing? Like, how did that work?
We were getting married in September.
Oh, so the timing just worked out that you guys were married by the time you moved.
Yeah, basically.
So you guys never lived with each other until you were married.
Until we were married.
Sheesh.
Yeah.
I mean, I hear different sides of it. Yeah. And I have a whole plethora of questions. Yeah. related to that. Yeah. Because I think there's different trains of thought on that. Like, you shouldn't do it. Some people say you should do it because you learn a lot. Yeah. And I think there's a bigger hurdle to cross if you do it first. Yes. Because if you survive and make it, I think that first year of marriage is a lot easier. Absolutely. But if you don't do it, it's like, you think you know what's up. Yeah. And then there's a lot of learning to do. We're stuck.
And then you add not living in the same city on
top
of that.
So you're stuck because we got to figure it out because we're married now. But you're probably dealing with, there's like an average first year of marriage looks like and some of the challenges. Yeah. You're adding a whole new level of complexity when you've never been in like each other's spaces like that consistently. Mm-hmm. And so I want to understand what that looked like. Yeah. But before we do, given what you know in your experiences around being engaged, going to premarital, that's typically the steps. Would you recommend that for people prior to engagement, or would you say, just get engaged and then I would do it the same way again? So I know people who have done both. Obviously, I did after engagement. Yeah. I have some really close friends who did it before. I think that there are benefits to doing. I think there's benefits to doing it before, as well as waiting. We just hadn't really thought about it. True, and I just say this more like as people are thinking about it. Like if you were to say, "Hey, for my child or anybody that I'll talk to, I would just say, do it before." Yeah. I'm not saying that's what you're saying. I'm just wondering what you would say now because there are pros and cons to both of them. I don't know that there are that many more like cons to doing it beforehand. I don't see any cons to doing it beforehand. If you're like courting your intent on marriage, there's no reason why you need to wait till an engagement. What I have seen though is that there are couples who are waiting until they have issues to then try to go to a counseling session, and then this is all pre-engagement, and so. I don't know if the premarital counseling can necessarily fix the issue. That specific counselor. Yeah, I get it. So no, and I think that's an important part to bring up. That premarital counseling is not to solve your individual issues. I think in my experiences, and you can tell me if yours are similar or different. It helps you understand things that it kind of gives you tools that you need to like understand, and maybe questions you need to ask yourself.
Yep.
To like build the tools to like to be capable of having a successful marriage. And so some of those things are things you might not have thought about. Some of those things are like help you open your eyes to how you should think about things that may come up in the future. But if you're having a issue about X, it may not even talk about X to help you guys figure out how do you guys resolve that. That's like an individual counselor. You guys need to navigate that piece of it. So I definitely agree. I think people have to be like open and willing to receive what comes out of that stuff to be helpful.
Sure.
Yeah, I just don't know what like I can see in a situation what a con would be for doing premarital counseling after the engagement is because in my head it's like there's almost like a fear that we've already told people, so we have to make it work.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know what the counter is that on before engagement. Like, what is that one thing that's unique to this doing it here that you wouldn't get on the other end of it?
No,
I don't know.
Yeah, I agree.
And so I encourage people. I think if you're thinking about your relationship seriously, and that is a destination that you both are now talking about, thinking about.
Exactly.
I would always recommend doing it prior to engagement because you don't have an additional person that we have to make it work. Yeah. Because we told people. Yeah. And it's going to look a certain way if we don't.
I think the main reason we didn't do it before is just we were living in separate cities, right? So
it's not, I mean, most people are doing it after the engagement, so it's not like you're wrong if you don't do it. I just think like if you already know that and you're thinking about it, just go ahead and don't wait if you already know something you're thinking about doing. Yeah. It may give her some like indication that you want to propose, but you can wait 13 months and then and then go from there. So back to you've gone through premarital counseling. You guys are married.
We're moved. Yep.
You've moved to Dallas.
Yep.
What were some of the biggest adjustments that you had to make?
Man, there were quite a few. I think
you learn how anal some people are.
Well, I think there's all the things that you would encounter with a roommate. They come up as soon as you start living with someone, right? And so we loved the people that we were, but we didn't necessarily love the roommates that we were, right? So, I mean, just like little stuff, right? Like putting clothes on top of the hamper, and that's like your in between, like it's a pair of jeans I may want to come back to and wear. Sometimes people like to put that on top of the hamper, and I'm like it's dirty, throw it in the hamper, and little stuff, right? Like that's not even that big of a deal, but like you start adding up all these little things, and they become annoyances. It
builds up, yeah.
And so we had to deal with a lot of that. We had to deal with talking about when we're annoyed about things. Like, how do you bring up to someone that you have an issue? And then how do you respond to someone when they tell you they have an issue with you so that they still feel comfortable coming to you with issues, right? Yep. Because you need to be able to have that open line of communication.
On both sides. Yeah. Because I think I mentioned it earlier around women being receptive or creating environments for vulnerability.
Exactly.
I think that same principle or premise is around like that communication. Yeah. It's like, if you don't create spaces for people to bring stuff up and talk about it in a productive way, then either they're going to continue to annoy you or they're not going to bring it up and then it builds resentment. Yeah. And so what did you feel, what worked for you guys or what did you learn in terms of how to do that? Yeah. And I know it's nuanced for y'all, but I think some of those things may just work in general.
No, I mean, it was not really going smoothly, for
you say suck, like, I think people need to understand, like, you see someone that's been married for 5 years, they have a beautiful child, like, man, I want that. Yeah. I want that. And they don't realize this has been a journey. Yeah. This has been a process. It wasn't all gravy every step of the way. So if it sucked, I wanted you to say like
it was not going well at all. And in that first kind of once we got past the honeymoon stage, there was probably like 3 months of like everything's cool. Then like that next 6 months were just like it wasn't looking great. And so we found a counselor.
Okay, so you guys proactively went to one.
Yeah. It was like we did the way we're heading right now. We're not gonna go the distance like in this trajectory. So
was there any like who suggested that? And was there any who that was the other person kind of open to that or was there any? Because I know, especially in the Black community, we feel some kind of way about hearing a counselor or therapist. And I'm all like, I support that. Like, go talk to some people that can help you figure some stuff out.
So she suggested it. I think at first, maybe like the first conversation, I was kind of like, I don't think we need to do that. Like, I think we'll be able to work it out, kind of thing. Like, we can kind of figure this out ourselves. We don't necessarily need to go talk to someone. And then she pressed it, and I was like, all right, well,
And this is one of the things we got to do.
Yeah, we got to go.
How I feel.
Yeah. So
is it safe to say you weren't coming in the same way her idea wasn't to break up back then? Your idea wasn't to go to counseling.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to go as far as say you weren't open to it, but it wasn't your idea. Like,
it wasn't my idea.
You didn't
no.
really want to do it, but you're doing it because it's like, if I want this to work, she's saying we got to do it, so we're doing it.
Yeah.
You were there because you had to be in the beginning.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
I'm pushing you there because I want to. My sentiment is that you've evolved from that.
Yeah.
And so my sentiment, I want people to understand that are like that now.
Yeah.
To know like you are one of them.
Yeah. That's fair. That's fair.
At some point in time. Like,
yeah.
You were the guy that didn't want to go.
Yeah.
You went because you had to.
Yeah.
And you didn't probably think it was going to be that helpful or whatever. Yeah. And we can talk about how it's changed, but I want people to say like, "Oh, I see myself in him."
Yeah.
You know, or
not. I think you also have to find someone that works for you. Don't be afraid to shop. Don't be afraid to shop counselors. We actually
it's like doctors or dentists. Or
whatever. Yeah. We actually hit it out the park with our first one, so we got lucky.
Did you guys do like a spiritually or religious based one, or just kind of went to?
So she had a Christian focus, and so that wasn't necessarily like on purpose. Like we kind of were like looking at different profiles of different therapists. Some that did have religious angles, and some that didn't. We just liked overall what her profile was about, and so chose her, and she was great. I think the biggest thing we gained from it were just tools that we could fall back on, right? Things that, if there's a disagreement, this is how you should speak about it. Speak about it from a sense of not what the person is doing, but how it makes you feel, and what certain actions translate and how you receive them from the other person, and just how to kind of talk through a lot of those issues that come up. So I thought it was great for mainly conflict resolution. That was kind of the big issue.
So I'm gonna play some things back, and you tell me spot on or like not exactly.
Yeah.
So first, before we get there, this person was in Dallas.
Yes.
What's her name? Because I think people I think it's hard to know who are good people out there. So like, you give her a shout out. I mean, she.
I forgot her name actually.
Oh. So. Okay, we'll figure out her name, and I'm gonna post it in the. I'll post it in the description. I'll post it in the description of this podcast, so we'll get her name. If you guys are looking for a therapist in the Dallas area, you can find a good one. 'Cause I think that's a hard one.
No, I got
take
you.
referrals.
Yeah,
so we'll get her name. But the things you talked about, I think, are real because I think they all kind of spit from the same. Yeah. The good ones spit from the same tree. I statements versus you statements. Are super important. If you don't know what those are, Google. I think, did y'all do the emotional wheel?
No, we did there was like a house that talked about like foundations of your relationship and how you build like a solid relationship. Mm-hmm. So it sounds like it may be something similar to a wheel, or no?
Well, the wheel part was the fact that we tend to use like a limited number of words to describe how we feel.
Oh, okay.
And so like you're a big wine drinker.
Yep.
So it's kind of the same wheel for like the palate.
Okay.
So if you feel like oak or woody, there's a lot of different words that could be woody or whatever.
Gotcha.
So if you feel anger,
yes,
there's a lot of words that then describe those things. So I was actually hurt. I was embarrassed. I was frustrated, right?
So we talked about it. I don't think we just didn't put it in the context of a wheel. But yeah, we did have like an emotions breakdown in one of our sessions. She gave us a lot of worksheets that had like different things on it. So that was part of it.
And in your process of having these like homework assignments, exercises, as someone that came in not necessarily like gun ho about it, what was your attitude towards those type of activities?
I was fine with it. I actually felt like it was productive. I was coming at it from like just a logical standpoint. I thought that, from the first session, I was seeing kind of a change in mindset for myself. And so I thought it was actually being helpful for us overall. So I became more and more open to the exercises and to the assignments that we were getting.
Were you proactive about it, or was it her saying, hey, we got to do this?
Well, I'm kind of a academic nerd type person, so I get homework. I'm taking care of. I'm good, right?
So ASAP.
So I had my little folder, counseling labeled on it. I had my little worksheets in there. I still got it in there somewhere, I'm sure.
So you was ready. Yeah. Doing out of the nature of your personality.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So I was taking care of it.
I was asking because I know some people that have not been as open to it, and so they didn't probably get what they needed to get out of it.
No, that's fair.
And I think therapy, one, I think is important what you said. You got to find someone that works for you.
Yeah.
And there's no right answer.
Yeah.
But someone that feels credible to both of y'all.
For sure.
Because if someone...
And that's important.
Yeah.
Because I've heard of people who, like, they've been seeing someone as, like, their personal therapist, and then they want to try to bring their partner in.
Yeah.
And so,
the person, I don't know,
it's like you come almost
they
feel
know
like
your whole side of things.
Exactly. Yeah. So I would say find a neutral party.
And I think that credibility part, because when you have someone that's credible, then when someone says something that you don't like, you take it with... It carries weight.
Exactly.
And I think once you have that piece, if the person is not open to it, and you're with a credible person, no matter how great that person is, it's not going to be received. And so people have to be in a place to be like, whether it doesn't have to happen immediately, but they need to be open to getting there where they want to receive and do the work.
For sure.
And if you don't have someone that's going to do the work or potentially be open, then it doesn't matter how many sessions you go to. I don't think it's that therapy can be that effective for you if you're not in a place of your own personal reflection to think that someone else can provide insights that you don't have.
Yeah.
So given that y'all got through that stage, is it something that you guys are like, okay, we figured out how we are roommates.
Yeah.
We don't need to see you no more, or do you guys continue to see, or how does it work?
That's why I forgot her name, because we haven't seen her in like 3.5 years. You know, we haven't had to go back. Like,
so how long did you guys see her then?
We saw her for probably a year.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, that tracks, right? So 6 months in, we started seeing her. A year. It's been like 3.5 years since we've seen her. So.
Okay. No, it's interesting because I know a person, he was on the podcast, that says like they still go.
Yeah.
To see their, like, they have a counselor and they more do it from like a preventative standpoint.
Yeah.
Like prevention over like mitigation. How do we figure it
Sure.
out? And so I just didn't know if you guys were in a similar boat or...
We feel like we kind of got past some of the major issues, and we've definitely had to check in with each other and kind of do like, you know, mini refreshers. Like, okay, like this is how we learned to deal with this. Let's make sure we're sticking to those things. But we haven't had to go in person and talk to her.
Gotcha.
So it's been good.
Would you recommend that? Or, I mean, maybe you guys don't do it because whatever reason, but
yeah.
What are your thoughts on like that as a form of...
I think you got to do what works for you, right? For us, we feel like... we got the tools we needed. We've been able to continue applying those tools. If we see ourselves encountering new issues, I think we'd be open to going back. But we've been pretty much satisfied with how that all worked out.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I think in all of this, there's not a right or wrong.
Yeah.
I think you said it best. It's like you have to figure out what works for you.
Yeah.
I think the key part in what works for you is you got to be at a point where you really understand yourself.
Yeah.
And whether that's through counseling or self-reflection or having high emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
Like, it's important to know yourself to then be able to know what works for you.
Yeah.
Sometimes, I mean, there's a lot of people walking around that they feel a lot.
Yeah.
But don't really know like the whys and stuff behind it. Moving along, what would you say are things that, like, back then, and you alluded to it a little bit, that you placed value on before as it pertains to like a partner, that you realize like, yo, it's just not that important when you think about like, I'm 5 years into marriage and like this is not that serious?
You know, I think it was more what I wasn't paying attention to that mattered for a partner before. So like I kind of mentioned it before, where I was like just thinking like boyfriend, girlfriend, very superficial things the first go around. But in that second go was very much focused on attributes that were going to be important for a lifelong partner. Like, is this woman going to be a nurturing mother? And how am I seeing her nurturing aspects come out in different scenarios, you know, how we're dating? Is this person, like I mentioned money already, just being financially responsible? Is this person someone that I can fully like trust and know that she is going to make right decisions in whatever scenarios that may come up? So I was just paying more attention, you know?
But so two things that come to mind as you say that. I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
But you've been married for 5 years.
Yeah.
Even what you thought was important at that point in time, is it, you think those things are still consistent now? Or are you like, I was worried about this a little bit, but like 5 years in, it probably wasn't that serious?
Nothing that jumps out, honestly. I think some things that I've come to appreciate, I think, over the course of 5 years of marriage, I think just her ability to be, I think I said this early on about just how compassionate and empathetic she is, and just her level of being able to relate to whatever I'm going to through emotionally and kind of help counsel me through that. That's not something that I was necessarily paying attention to.
That like you felt like you needed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think that just that characteristic of her was something that was probably underappreciated until we got deeper into our marriage.
No, I feel you on that, and I think that's a good point to highlight. How do you think your wife would answer that question? Or, how do you think she would, in terms of what she probably thought or you felt like she was looking for, and now realizes, like, that's not that serious?
There's nothing I can really point to. I know what she was looking for, and I think it's similar to kind of some of the things I've said before. Like, she wanted someone that could kind of keep up with her from an intellectual standpoint, have stimulating conversations, and be excited about kind of learning new ideas. She wanted someone that was kind and just had someone that she had a good connection with. So I think those things are still there for her, still important for her. I can't really think of anything that maybe she was thinking about that.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter now.
I feel you. And you mentioned some of the intellectual aspects of it, but I'm always curious to understand, how has intimacy played a role in your relationship?
Intimacy is really important. I think that there's obviously, physical intimacy, and if you date someone for long enough, there's probably going to be some level of physical intimacy if that's something that you're open to, and it was for me, right? So,
what does that mean? It was for me.
I mean, I was open to being physically.
But that was something that was important to you. Like,
no. Where I'm trying to go with it is, I think that one thing that me and her have been able to establish is it goes beyond just the physical intimacy, yes. Right? And so, I think physical is kind of like something that a lot of people in their young dating life will experience with other folks, but then there's a level of intimacy that's much deeper. True. That I've been able to experience with.
I hear you on that.
Yeah.
But my question is that important to you, though?
No,
physical. Because some people it's not. Some people I can touch you once every 2 months and I'm good.
Oh, no.
So, I get that, I agree with you. It's important that there's more than just the physical.
For sure.
But, is that important to you in her? Or...
Yes. Yes. The short answer to your question, yes, it's important to me.
Some people I don't need to touch you that much.
Yeah, I hear you. Okay. So I'm kind of, I'm talking around some things right there. But being honest, yes, physical intimacy is incredibly important to me. But I think for me, and fast forwarding 5 years into marriage, like the little things that are intimate moments are super important, and maybe something going back, I guess, to your earlier question about things that I didn't see and now appreciate more. I think that those are some of those things that are important now.
Got it. How would you say your relationship has changed over time?
Well, I think both of us have matured in a lot of ways. We have matured individually and with each other in a really complementary way. I think we're just in general. It's like I see the changes, but I don't really know how to articulate exactly what I'm trying to get to. But I just think there's a level of maturity that has come with our 5 years, and there's a level of closeness that's there. And, I mentioned things like our little inside jokes and our ability to kind of connect intellectually, and that just has continued to develop and evolve over time.
That makes sense to me. And I think some guys during some of the reunion episodes or part 2 of season 1 talked about that in the sense of there's nothing like having like an extended or like forever running joke with someone. These experiences that go years and years and years that you can continue to go back to,
Yeah.
And I think the longer you've been with someone in a relationship, whether it's friendship or romantic, the longer you have these jokes that just continue to, every time you think about them, are like heartstrings to closeness, right?
For sure.
But on the other aspect you mentioned that we've matured, are there ways that stand out to you that, like, you guys, when you say I've matured, that come to mind? Like, you said we both matured in some ways outside of those.
I think we just have a better handle on who we are as people, and what our thoughts, whether that's our thoughts on theology, our thoughts on being Black in America, her thoughts on being a woman. We've just kind of really refined a lot of our thinking, and are feeling a lot more secure about who we are, what we believe, and we've grown together in ways that I think are just normal for people as they age, but it's been able to complement each other really nicely as we've been together in our marriage.
And so when you think about some of that maturation, I know one of the things that have come up a few times is the fact that men typically are solvers. We want to fix. Mm-hmm. You know, we hear something solution oriented. Not that women aren't. Sure. But that's our typical go-to. Whereas generally speaking, women are in the, on the feeling camp. Yep. You want to feel. So how has it been, whether it's like in the beginning of marriage and now, you navigating and understanding when to solve and fix and when to listen and, emote? For sure. I think that's another thing that came out for us in our therapy session that we had. This is the one post-marriage. And I didn't even pick up on it, honestly. It was something I was kind of ignorant to, that my go-to, and I started to see it every time we'd have a conversation. I'm immediately jumping to, okay, well, you need to do X, Y, Z. And really she just wants to vent. And so now, I'm asking, okay, is this the conversation right now? Even after 5 years, you're like, still this conversation? Now? I'm saying, what do you want to hear from me right now? Do you want to hear some solutions, or do you want me to just let you just let it out? And so she'll tell me. I think that's part of maturity, right? Hey, I support it, and I've said it before that men have to be better about asking. Yeah. Hey, is this a situation where you want me just to be here for you, or do you want my help? Yeah. But I think there's probably an expectation, and I think it's probably a poor expectation, that you should just know. I think some people are you should just know. You've been with the person for X number, you should just know. Yeah. What do you say to that? No, I'm still wired to think, how do we fix this problem? You're hurt. You're experiencing something that's going on right now, whether it's at work or in a relationship you have with a friend or whatever it may be. And I'm thinking, okay, how can we fix this? I'm immediately trying to take that hurt off of your mind. And maybe you just want to tell me about it, and you just want me to listen, and that is cathartic for you. Do you ever fake it? Oh yeah, for sure. I was telling somebody. Telling someone I was like, guys, you just gotta listen. Sometimes, you gotta act like you care. Yeah. And it's like, why would you act because at the end of the day, he really doesn't care. Yeah. But it's important for him to care. Yeah. And so that was my perception of what happens and what should happen. Yeah. But I'm starting to ask the guys, bro, how much is it? And do you think it matters to her as long as the end result is the end result? I think she has someone that listened to her and emoted the way she wanted to emote, whether you're like, this is dumb as hell or not. The only difference is I'm just not telling you the solutions. I'm still thinking of the solutions in my mind while you're talking. But you should do this, actually. I wait for you to ask me. Exactly. I've already figured out. Whenever you're ready to come ask me what you think you should do, I already figured it out. But I'll just be quiet and let you tell me. I think in the same camp, but I think it's important to hear men say, because I think in the same vein that there's expectation out there that whether it's about this on the man side that you should just know or what men may have for women, I think the reality is that you're continually growing and learning, and I think it's a pride thing to be like, I'm not going to ask, no, just ask. It's easier. Yeah. Save everybody some trouble. And even on the same ends of that we just talked about, you're I fake it, but sometimes you got to fake some things to keep it going. Yeah. And I'm sure on the serious things and things that make sense to you, you're there with all the authenticity because you get it. It connects for you. Yeah. But I don't think there's anything wrong with being. Some people look at it as being inauthentic because you were faking it or you seem like you care more than you did. I think sometimes it's showing up the way people need you to show up, right? Whether it's like going to your kids' practice. Yeah. Did you want to be there to see these sorry 5-year-olds play whatever sport? Yeah. No. Yeah. But you're there. You're there. You're cheering. Yeah. And then and they respond with the most happiness of support. Yeah. Even though you're like, I could be doing 12 other important things, right? So I think that's going back when you said something that's changed in our relationship. There's just a level of comfort to be unabashedly myself, right? She knows I'm thinking of solutions for her. She knows it. Yeah. But she's like, come on, let me listen for a while. Give me a solution. She knows. Give me your thoughts. Yeah, she knows, and we know each other that way. So to where it's like, all right, did that happen over Like you said, that's been a building, like a process that's been cultivated over the past 5 years, and and I would say still growing. Or did you say coming into the marriage, we had a good sense of that, and it's just becoming more refined?
No. I think again, going back to when you're dating long distance, it's about like those experiences are fun. You know, you're not necessarily getting into those weeds.
Almost like it sounds like you're saying like we realize the level of compatibility in the long distance, but we don't know if we could work. There's a lot of compatibility.
Yes.
And there's a difference, right? Yeah. Like there's a difference in, you know, I tell people that some of my fears was like just jump into relationships. Like you find out who you're compatible with, and it's like, let's go do it. And when go do it means like I'm going to preclude myself from anybody else that I could get to know and see what compatibility looks like, not knowing if this could work in a relationship. Yeah. And I think there's levels to which you can understand if it can work in a relationship without being like super exclusive. Yeah. But I just think that like we think about compatibility in the sense of like trust, safety, mentally and emotionally, and all those other things that are like you would say below the surface. Yeah. That we like, no, I got to be booed up. Yeah. And before we start exploring that, I was like, no, you can explore it beforehand. For sure. You know, and I mean, maybe I could be wrong, but your thoughts on that?
No, I think that there's an element of trying to figure out compatibility that can happen before you decide to commit, like, to date one person. You know, you can have that exploration. Is she gonna be on board with that or not?
I know I'm hitting a whole different like philosophical perspective, or I'm gonna take a whole bunch of L's, but then like y'all gonna be like Muhammad Ali and like, you know what he's been saying 20 years, he's been saying this. You know, and back when I'm married, I'd be like, he was right. You know, but I get it. Moving on. What do you describe? What would you say your love languages are, and what would you say hers are?
Yeah, so mine is acts of service.
That's your top one?
Yes, my top one.
What's the next? What's the second?
I think my second one is quality time, and then probably physical touch. Okay. And then hers used to be physical touch, but I'd say since we've had
postpartum,
yes, it's acts of service now.
Watch these bottles.
That's literally what it is. Do something for me. I need some help. Like
be useful.
Exactly. So that's why I'm like, all right, I'm gonna take the baby. We're gonna go. Yeah. We're gonna give you some time.
Would you say acts of service was like her second beforehand?
Probably, yeah.
She was like, don't touch me. Yeah. You need to wash some bottle, take the shower. Give me a break. Exactly. No, okay. That makes sense, and it's interesting that you said it's changed. Yeah. Was that a process to recognize that it's changed? And I'm highlighting that you said that because I want people to understand that people are continually evolving. Yeah. And the person that you marry may not be the person that you have in front of you 15 years from now. You hope that like there's a level of, so they always say that you will either rub off on me or I'll rub off on you as you spend time with each other. Do you hope that there's a balance of you guys rubbing off on each other? Yeah. But people will change over time, typically. And so did you like recognize that offhand, or was it a conversation that you guys had? How did you recognize?
Yeah, we had a conversation about it. I think love languages kind of came back up in a conversation we were having with friends. And she like explicitly said like, it's really more about him freeing up some time for me, like him doing something that is going to take a lot of time that will help me to go if I want to go take a nap, or I want to go exercise or do some yoga or something like that. You doing that is how I feel love coming from you. So that was an explicit conversation.
Well, I don't want you having that explicit conversation with me, so I'm going to free up some time and wrap this up for us. Mick, I appreciate your time once again, spitting jewels, sharing your story, and helping people learn from it. I look forward to continuing this conversation next week, where we talk about service and servant leadership. Why do you think the term or perception of head of household is a bit outdated? And the importance of setting boundaries with friends and family. I hope everyone enjoyed our conversation today. I hope you're learning from it. I hope you use this to keep the conversation going with your partner and friends. Make sure that you subscribe to the I Think I Love My Wife podcast. Leave a written review. Share with a friend. Like literally, copy paste the link and send it to a friend. And until next time, I hope the conversation keeps going.